Have you ever watched friendly disagreements become corrosive gossip and then watched it wound leaders and community members? Just remember this, that in Numbers chapter 12, we're going to see how jealousy and murmuring against God's chosen leader can actually poison the camp, how God defends faithful mediation, and how intercession and humility bring restoration. Listen, for one simple step you can take today to check private resentment before it becomes public harm. And I'm going to give you 4 biblical unlocks from this chapter in this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. If you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Now, let's get a little bit of context on the chapter. Alrighty, so Numbers chapter 12 sits right after the crisis that we saw in Numbers chapter 11. So in Numbers chapter 11, we saw the grumbling, the quail, and the shared leadership. So remember, the Israelites were grumbling basically because they weren't getting any meat to eat. They were only eating the manna, which are like these wafers that God provided. So God basically punished those who were grumbling by giving them quails, and then the quails caused a plague at Kibroth Hattaavah. So that's what we saw in the last episode. Here, Aaron and Miriam speak with Moses, right, partly over his Cushite wife and partly over his unique prophetic status. And God interrupts the conversation, defends Moses' unique role as a face-to-face speech and as a faithful servant, and punishes Miriam with a skin disease. And this is traditionally translated as leprosy in Numbers chapter 12 verse 10. Moses prays, then God heals after Miriam's exile for 7 days. And this chapter is actually going to teach us about jealousy, prophetic mediation, divine defense, and restorative mercy. You can join from anywhere. This is a leadership and community lesson for every church, family, and team. So, let's read the first 3 verses. Aaron and Miriam are going to oppose Moses. So, my question to you is, where in your life do you harbor quiet complaints that can quickly become public harm? Verse 1. While they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had indeed married a Cushite woman. And they said, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very humble, more so than anyone else on the face of the earth. Okay, biblical unlock number 1. Sorry, I laughed a little because Moses called himself the most. He said in verse 3, "Now the man Moses was very humble, more so than anyone else on the face of the earth." That's Numbers chapter 12 verse 3. It's funny because Moses is writing that he is the most humble and more so than anyone on the face of the earth. Anyway, the deep biblical unlock number 1 is what actually looks like concern can hide a corrosive, envious desire. You can see that Miriam and Moses, they're speaking against Moses in verse 1. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. And the interesting here is the text links the complaint both to Moses' marriage and to his unique access to God, right? So the phrase "speak against" shows the move from private resentment, right? It's a private resentment over the marriage, to a public act that actually undermines his leadership. So the theology here is that jealousy often dresses as righteous critique, but its fruit is division. Okay, let's read verses 4 to 8 now. God is going to intervene. He's actually going to defend Moses' unique status. And my question to you is, how do you respond when God's chosen instrument is criticized? Let's read verses 4 to 8. Suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "Come out, you 3, to the tent of meeting." So the 3 came out. Then the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forward. And he said, "Hear my words. When there are prophets among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly, not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord." So what's interesting here, or the second biblical unlock, is that God clarifies the difference between Moses' office and ordinary prophetic speech, that there is a certain level of intimacy he has with Moses that he doesn't have with any other prophet. God challenges Aaron and Miriam directly and says Moses is uniquely known to Yahweh. With him I speak mouth to mouth plainly and not in riddles. The point here is that Moses' authority rests on a particular divine intimacy and fidelity, and it's not just a human prestige. God protects the mediator whom he has placed between himself and the people. We obviously remember that in Exodus chapter 3 verse 14, Moses speaks directly with God in the form of the burning bush. And Moses chapter 33 verse 11, Moses spoke with God face to face. And we're going to read later on in Deuteronomy chapter 34 verse 10 that there is no prophet like Moses. So there is something special here, divinely instituted and ordained by God. And to compare yourself to Moses and to say, well, I don't think Moses is really that special. I don't think God has made the right decision by picking Moses. It's sort of going against what God has instituted, his rightful leader and his intimate leader as well. Okay, verses 9 to 15 now. Miriam is going to be struck. Moses is going to intercede on her behalf. So, who prays when leaders are wounded, and how do we pursue restoration? Let's read verses 8 to 15. With him I speak face to face, clearly, not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Verse 9, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. When the cloud went away from over the tent, Miriam's skin had become diseased, white as snow. And Aaron turned towards Miriam and saw that she was diseased. Then Aaron said to Moses, O my Lord, do not punish us for a sin that we have so foolishly committed. Do not let her be like one stillborn whose flesh is half consumed when it comes out of its mother's womb. And Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, O God, please heal her. But the Lord said to Moses, if her father had but spit in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and after that she may be brought in again. So Miriam was shut out of the camp for 7 days, and the people did not set out on the march until Miriam had been brought in again. After that the people set out from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. Alright, cool. Verses 9 to 15, we'll go through one biblical unlock here. A leader's holiness does not actually make them immune. It summons others to intercede and to lead to measured restoration. Because what we saw is that God's anger burned brightly. It burned against Miriam, and she is stricken with a skin disease, and the camp has to isolate her outside the camp for 7 days. And Moses pleads, "O God, please heal her." And Moses' intercession models a leader who refuses retribution. He could have easily have said, well, you have completely undermined my leadership role. I think you deserve exactly what you got. But instead he prays for healing. And theologically, true mediation calls followers to restoration, not punitive finality, not seeking revenge, but rather praying for each other. We read this in the New Testament in James chapter 5 verse 16. The idea there is that we must pray for one another so that you may be healed, because we are all suffering from a different kind of disease, a spiritual disease which is called sin, and we must pray that God helps us in navigating the challenges associated with this spiritual disease. And in verse 16, exile can be a brief instrument of healing when accompanied by intercession and the discipline of the community. Because after Miriam's 7-day separation, the community resumes travel and she's brought back. The exile actually functions as corrective mercy, a visible consequence, time to reflect and then return. The lesson here is discipline is not banishment forever, but a covenantal tool towards restoration. God is merciful and He seeks your best interests in mind. So when he exiles you for 7 days, for example, what he's actually implying, or what he wants, is for you to reflect on your decisions, come back restored and in line with God's covenant. Okay, let's see how this chapter fulfills Jesus Christ. So, Moses' unique mediatorship, right? It's defended by God, vulnerable to attack, and served by intercession. All of these things point to Jesus Christ. Because Jesus himself is the true mediator who speaks for the Father. We read this in John chapter 14, verses 9 to 11. Jesus is speaking to one of his disciples, Philip, and Jesus says to him, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves." He bears unjust acts. He invites intercession, and he brings full, permanent restoration through his sacrifice on the cross. Where Moses interceded temporarily on behalf of Miriam, Christ intercedes eternally for his people. As we read in Hebrews chapter 3 verse 1, "Therefore, holy brothers who share in a heavenly calling, consider Jesus, the apostle and high priest of our confession." And we also read in Hebrews chapter 7 verse 25, "Consequently, he is able for all time to save those who approach God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them." Christ is our continual intercession. Okay, let's go through some practical applications we can apply in our lives today. The first thing is to catch the whisper. You need to do a 5-minute heart check now. Is my complaint actually a covert envy? You need to write down the complaint, one sentence. If it names a person, pause. Do not post or say it. Instead, ask yourself, what would loving correction or even disarming yourself of this vile attack, what will it do? If you can't answer in loving terms, keep the word private and pray for humility for 24 hours. Because this actually interrupts the pattern that we saw in Numbers chapter 12 verses 1 to 3 with Miriam and Moses. While they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had indeed married a Cushite woman. So you need to break this pattern. The moment that you speak against, that's when the desires of your heart are laid waste for everyone to see. And the second thing is, practice Moses' intercession. Identify one leader, one mentor, one teacher who you've privately criticized, and do 2 things this week. 1, pray for them by name each morning for 7 days. And B, send one encouraging note or offer practical help. Model Moses. Protect and restore rather than punish publicly. And the reason why it is, you don't have to do the second part if you don't want to, but the first part, pray for them. If you have animosity towards someone, if you dislike what they're doing, instead of hating them, pray that they change. Pray that they become servants of Christ, right? Not instruments of the devil. Alright, well, that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. Next episode, we're going to unpack Numbers chapter 13 and 14. Well, obviously Numbers chapter 13, we're going to see the scouts report, the community's fear, and the consequence of unbelief. If Numbers chapter 12 taught us about jealousy and restoration, Numbers chapter 13, and then the day after Numbers chapter 14, they're going to show how fear multiplies and how faith, or lack of it, shapes a whole generation. You don't want to miss it. So thank you for listening. Numbers chapter 12 is brutal and merciful. Jealousy wounds. God defends what he appoints, and intercession restores. So make sure you catch those whispers of animosity right now. Keep one angry sentence private and pray instead. Then if you feel able, do Moses' harder things. Pray and encourage a leader who you've criticized. Smile though, because even small acts of restraint and prayer start to heal communities. Tell one friend what you'll do and let them hold you accountable. Until next time, choose restoration over rumor and let prayer protect your people. Also, don't forget to follow and rate the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.